So I come this
You
way.
go that way first.
Yeah, go this way. I come with you here. Okay. Am I on?
Yep.
It's good. Okay. Hi, everybody. Phones. We're now on a hotspot, so hope Arch Meadery and Chinook Honey for Honey Farm. They've been with us. So Sherry has actually been one of the one of the owners. Sherry's been on a former member of our board of our club, long-time members, long-time supporters of our club. And recently I've seen email discussions in the group, in the Edmonton one, and ours. People are talking about mead again. Mead is right now, in general, really the drink that's up and coming big time in Alberta. If you talk to restaurants, bars, anybody involved in the food business, it's really exciting times. So I thought, why not make a little podcast, a little live stream here about mead. We all had what I hear really good crop stakes of alcohol from it. And so I asked Jerry and Art, and they really were welcoming us here to come. So I would like you guys to introduce you to also.
Thanks for looking in, everybody. Just trying to give you a little bit of a background on myself and all about what I've done to make mead and so on. A little bit of my background is basically I started into beekeeping about 25 years ago with 2 hives, and I figured that was all I'm going to have and so on. But later on down the road, the guy I bought the beehives from, he decided you should have more because I'm getting out of the business. So I ended up with at one point 300 hives, and of course you're producing a whack of honey, and you got to do something with it. So this is when we decided to open the store, and from there on, it got bigger. We did tours, and the next thing you know, my wife came to me one day and she says, you're going to. I made a lot of beer over the years, and too difficult. So I decided, and I didn't know what, but I did find out later on when I did consult with a PhD in sparkling wine. There was a little thing he told me that made the big difference before we went commercial. So if you realize that there's going to be mistakes made in anything in life, I've made every mistake a mead maker can make. And believe me, I know exactly if you make a mistake, what happened, because I've made them all. Anyway, we want to just talk about, you can all make mead. It's not the end of the world. It's just there's a few things you have to look out for. And as I say, when you make a batch and you're not happy with it, don't give up. Try it again. Try to figure out what the problems were and learn from the mistakes and keep on going. Anyway, if you're going to make some small batches of mead, you're going to need some equipment. And basically, wine making equipment works pretty well with making mead. It's the same idea. You're just substituting honey where you normally use grape juice, but there is some differences, and we'll talk about that as we go along, and so on. So you're going to need a fermenter, usually 5-gallon plastic fermenter. You're going to need a secondary fermenter, which is usually a glass carboy, 23 liters or whatever. You can make them in 1 gallons, 5 gallons, and 10 gallons, 50 gallons, whatever suits you. Anyway, it's very important when you're making booze because you need to know what your gravity is going to be. And with beer, it's pretty easy because there's not enough fermentables in the barley to actually go too high in alcohol. So maybe 5 to 7% with beer before it runs out of fermentables. And with wine, When you make a batch of wine, you let it ferment. When it's finished fermenting, you have an alcohol content, and it could be 11%, 15%, 14%, or whatever. But when it's finished, it's finished. You can either put it in the bottle and drink it, you can filter it and drink it. Well done. You can't do that with mead. It doesn't work well. Believe me, I made that mistake. I still have some from 20 years ago. It's in my wine cellar. Not very good. But there is some there that it's not bad. Okay, so let's look at the common mistakes you can make when you're making mead. Number one, with any kind of alcohol you're making, it's very important to be very clean and sterile. And you need to be, everything has to be totally sterile. There's different ways of doing that. Some people use a chlorine-based agent to clean things, which is okay, it works good. The only thing is there, you have to rinse out your whatever you're using. Otherwise, it may corrode if you're using metal. If you're using glass, no problem. There's a thing called, it's an offshoot of iodine. You'll ferment, and it'll keep your fermenter really nice and clean. There's another thing that I also use is called Parazan. That's and another thing that you can use is also an alcohol-based substance. I use isopropanol, which runs 70% alcohol. It would be the same thing you would use in hospitals when they do use alcohol in the hospitals. It's the same idea. And if you want to just spray some equipment before you use it, without having to rinse it, you can do this. And to be very sterile, make sure everything's totally clean. And even then, you can still have a few problems and so on. The second thing in making mead is not getting your culture started properly. And I learned this from a PhD in sparkling wine. And I knew how to start my culture, start my yeast culture, but I didn't know this. And this is, it'll work for you. It'll ready, and it works both. Alcohol control. With beer, it's very easy because when you make beer, it runs out of fermentables around 5 to 7%. Except for when you're doing an IPA, we won't get into that right now. It's finished. When you make wine, it finishes when it runs out of its food, basically, and its sugars, it'll stop fermenting. Mead, it's not like that because you get all this honey, and it's so much, it ferments like crazy. And the best yeast, and it's going to measure your gravity of your yeast culture. So when you mix up your honey and water, you're going to put this in, and you're going to get a gravity. And the number that you get at the top of the level is your starting gravity. Now, if you let that mead ferment for too long, it's going to go right down to 0, which means you're going to get a whole lot of alcohol. You don't want that to happen. You want to control that alcohol content. So somewhere along the line, you want to stop the fermentation. And I'll tell you how to do that shortly. Some high gravity meads, for instance, if you want to make a really sweet mead that's really high in a high gravity, this one here only goes to 1.160. So you might have to go to a higher level one, which it starts at 1.150, and it goes up to 2.0, I think it is. So if you got a high gravity mead, you might have to go to a higher level of a hygrometer. They all work the same idea. All right. So to control your alcohol content, there's different ways of doing it. Now, I like to use pure honey in my mead because there's one thing, you're going to get a better fermentation, you're going to get a better finishing mead, and you're going to get a longer lasting mead, and you don't need to get sulfites. Because if you pasteurize your honey or heat it too much before you make your mead, you're not going to have as good a product. The quality's not going to be as good. And pure honey, guess what? It's a preservative. You never have to use sulfites. And as long as that honey is pure in there, you can open a bottle of mead, you can put it in the fridge or with a cork in it, and I'll guarantee in 2 months you will not know the difference because you got pure honey in there. And it'll keep it alive for a long, long time. And the beauty of that is it ages. So 15 years is not an uncommon thing to have a bottle of mead that's sitting around that's very, very mellow on 15 years. As we all get mellow as we get older, why not mead? And so on, right? One thing I didn't mention is there's different types of mead. The basic is honey, water, and yeast. Now, that sounds very simple. That's what they call a traditional mead. That can change with how much honey you put in there. If you want a sweeter or drier. The kind of yeast you use. I'm using about 6 to 7 different kinds of yeast now. If you're going to start making mead, I would start with Lavin 1116, 1118, which is a champagne yeast, and they're very, very controllable. If you want something different with a different fruitiness to it or a different nose and so on, you can go on to some of the fancy wine yeast. Like if you want to know those, you can roll for questions later on. You can ask anything you want. I'll try to answer it. And so on. So a traditional mead, and if you're going to start making mead, I would suggest, from experience, is to start with traditionals and get them down to where you're happy with them before you start adding fruit and other things to the mead. The reason is, if you make a mead that's not great, and you go to work and think, oh man, I can put some fruit in here and I can disguise the mistakes, which you can, but it doesn't make you a better mead maker. So it's very important that you get your traditional down to you're happy with it before you start adding something else. So that brings us on to another kind of mead, and it's called a melomel. So when you add fruit to a mead, it's called a melomel. I'm not sure where that word originated, but I'm sure you can look it up and find that. That means you add fruit into the mead at some stage in the fermentation process. It depends on what you want. You can start it off in the beginning, you put it on in the middle, or you can start at the end. If you want a more fruit taste to your mead, you would put it in late in the fermentation. All right. There's another kind called a methaglen. A methaglen is basically Greek for medicine, which means herbs or spices. And that's the same idea. You can put your herbs or spices in whenever you want, and you can control that. And there's no rules on what you can use. I mean, like, there's millions of different kinds of spices and there's different kinds of herbs you can put in there. Somebody put alfalfa in. I don't think that worked out great, but open your mind. There's 3 other ones I don't make right now. One is called a sizer, which means like a cider. You're using mead instead of sugar and apple cider to make a sizer. It can be very nice if you do it right. There's a thing called a pyment. A pyment is when you mix grape juice and mead together. And that can be really nice too. It's awful hard to get the balance because you either taste too much mead or you taste too much wine. So, and there's a third one there that we don't really make. It's awful hard to make well. It's called a braggot. And that means you're making mead with grains and hops and from beer, basically, with mead. Now, to try to get the balance proper, it's really, really, really difficult. I haven't had one I liked yet. I've never tried them yet, so I shouldn't say it. Then you open your mind. So if you want to make a mead that's got everything in it, go ahead. Put anything you want in there. Open your mind. You can put oranges in. You can put raisins in. You can put anything you want in there. And but I would suggest get your traditional down really well. Start to ferment again. Number 2, you can add sulfites. which will slow down the fermentation and cut it off. Or number 3 is you can do it the natural way, and you might lose a little more mead this way, but what you can do is when you get to your alcohol content that you want, by using your hydrometer, you can transfer it to another tank. And every time you transfer from one tank to another, the yeast goes to the bottom and you lose more yeast. So you slow down your fermentation. And if you keep doing that 2 or 3 times, next thing you know, you stop the fermentation and you have control. And now you can either let it sit and bottle it. As long as there's no bubbles, there's no yeast, it should be okay. If you're not worried about bubbles, and you shouldn't be, because little effervescence is not going to hurt anybody. The only thing is, if you have effervescence in there, you might want to have a bottle that will hold the pressure. And a wine bottle with a cork will not do that because it will blow the cork. I've never had that happen. It never happened to me before in my life. And if you believe that. Anyway, this is a good example. This is actually good beer too. So anyway, if something like that, or yeast-stage filter, it's a sterile filter. It will take out yeast and you won't have any problem. We have to go through those filters because we're not producing sparkling wine. We want to make sure that nobody's corks are going to blow. So it's very important for us to filter. It doesn't really change the taste, but maybe it might be time for questions because I haven't covered totally everything, and I'm sure I always miss something somewhere along the line. But if there's room for questions, by all means, I can try to answer them for you.
Go on, talk. I don't know what to say.
Thank you, and then we can go on a field trip. We'll go on the field trip too.
Right. Okay.
Hang on, you've got a.
Coming down here to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Your art, by art, it just came to me now. I've made a few batches of meat myself. Funny thing is, at the beginning, it seemed to be working all the time. I still don't know what I'm doing, and it doesn't work anymore the way it should. So I had a couple bad batches. Now, you mentioned that before to me, and you said it again today. I think the hydrometer is definitely the thing to work with.
Yeah, it's very important. And I'll just give you an example. If you start with a gravity of 1.120, and that's a medium sweet mead, 5, you're going to get it. Because once you go down to 1.120 or lower, your alcohol creeps up and you're going to have an imbalance. So it's very important that you control that alcohol content. And another thing I didn't mention, your fermentation temperature is very important. I ferment at 68 degrees Fahrenheit. I think that's somewhere around 20 degrees Celsius. If you let it go higher than that, it'll ferment quicker, but you'll get some off flavors, which you don't want. You can cool it down to 50 degrees if you want, and it'll ferment. It'll slow it down a lot. So 68 to 70 degrees is, you want to be in that range someplace.
Okay. You also mentioned the cleanliness.
Yes.
Hygiene is very important. We all know that. Even if you're baking, for example, wild yeast is everywhere, obviously. Yes. Us as hobbyists, like you said, you made like me, hectoliters of beer and wine, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like a little winery at my house sometimes,
nice.
Especially in the summer.
Good.
We usually use either the pink, what you call the pink stuff,
yep.
Or sometimes
like porter base.
Yeah, and that should be for us. That should be sufficient, like for hobbyists.
Oh yes, no, it is sufficient. The only thing is, it does corrode, and if you have anything that's metal, that's the only thing. But no, for glass and plastic, it works wonderful. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so that you would suggest that.
Yep.
You don't need any iodine base or anything.
No, you don't need.
That's more for commercial applications.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's right. So And you said that obviously you use pure honey.
Yes,
You don't want anything pasteurized because already you're killing some of the what I call the good stuff,
the good
right?
stuff, exactly. Yeah.
It's the same thing if you want honey.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We don't pasteurize.
Yeah, for sure.
You have any questions online? Of course
No.
not.
It's just like anything else. If they're not sure what's the best, just go back to Mother Nature and keep it as pure as you can. You're going to get a better product.
Okay. I guess as mentioned earlier, this location here, it's Highway, was it 9, right?
7.
Highway 7. It's basically out of Okotoks. You're going west towards Black Diamond, Turner Valley. And when you go out, well, you're all the way around Okotoks. You see the big size of the highway for Chinook Honey Company. We're here in the fermenting room, but next door there is a beautiful store, and we go just quick on a little field trip through it, and we can look. They also have another building on the other side where they do presentations to people about their bees, and yeah. Yeah, we have
Okay.
Jerry will lead us on a little field trip to the store.
All right. So come on, everybody. There we go.
Turn this way first.
So yeah,
This way.
do you want to do a sweep just
Okay.
kind of around the store area?
And you'll notice the books and the ice cream. Oh, yes, we need to go close to the ice cream.
Oh yeah, yeah. Here, let me show off that ice cream.
Oh, yes. Here are the flavors. Honey Ripple, Saskatoon and Honey Ripple, Belgian chocolate and honey, black currant. Oh, and look at how delicious that is. So
Yes.
there are some up there.
Dulce de
Dulce de
leche.
leche, all kinds of wonderful things. So Will, are you okay if we keep going?
Yeah, well, I want to show off my personal
Oh,
favorite.
okay.
This is the chocomel.
Oh.
Chocolate. Yep, the Belgian chocolate.
Nice. With
So
honey and-
anyway,
oh,
all
yum.
varieties.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Certainly a good treat for right now in the heat of the summer. And we'll go this way through their mead collection to their tasting place.
So if you come through business hours, you can come here and taste the meat before you buy it.
Also, if you're interested, there's a little observation hive in the corner, always a big hit, and we can come right up to the bar.
All right.
Now we have the bar.
So I'm going to pour for our guests Melomel. This is our bodacious blackcurrant. So blackcurrant and honey. And so what we do with the blackcurrant is add it in the latter stages of the fermentation. So we're not actually fermenting the berries as much. It's the berries are added just for flavor, and we do use berries right here in Okotoks. So K-Ben Farms is just north, and we use the frozen blackcurrants and toss those in, as I say, in the latter part of the fermentation, and let them sit, let the fruit sit. It breaks down really nicely because the skins are broken, and we have quite a good success with this mead. It's really perfect for this time of year, and we have actually got it down to a fine art. So I'm going to, since we have bigger glasses than our normal tasting glasses, I'll just be able to pour a little bit more here. The other thing about this bodacious blackcurrant, and most of our melomels, they do make very good spritzers. So for this time of year, if you're sitting on the patio with bodacious blackcurrant, odds are you might finish the bottle and not even realize that you've done it. So what we recommend a lot of the time is to actually add some kind of a ginger ale spritzer or something like that, soda water. And so we've got that on just in case we want to try it in the spritzer mode. So, Thomas, did you want to give it a try?
Sure.
You'll be the guinea pig.
I'm the guinea pig.
And for those who want the the bubbly, there
I'll
you go.
try actually with the bubbly,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I like it out, so I'll try it. So how much would you recommend? Just a little shot? Or-
Yeah. A little bit first and then see how well it works.
Okay.
Okay, so, yeah,
Salute.
salute.
Prost.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, are you in the camera view?
Am I? I don't know. Am I in? Can you see me?
No, you're not.
I'm not. It should be, right?
Okay, well, back up so that you and Sherry are both in.
That's
There we
That's the
go.
favorite part of these own
Yeah.
seasoned beers for me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So those of you who've got beer, you go. We're drinking something on the meat end of the scale. So
It's
nice and
beautiful.
bright with that.
It's wonderful, yeah, actually.
Absolutely.
I never even thought about putting this in.
Yeah, yeah. So a little bit of soda water is
It's
perfect.
wonderful, or like what we use at home is the soda stream,
Yes.
right? We use that a lot, so.
Now we just need that soda stream to attach to the bottle.
That's right. So how much?
Yes.
This is like 12% or something alcohol?
Yes, most of our meats are around 12%.
12%, so yeah, if you drink a bottle like that, you're gonna feel it. Probably,
Oh, the whole
right?
bottle, yeah. Yeah. You can feel
So, yeah, it might be a good idea, because it's very drinkable, so I'm sure, yeah, the odds are, like Sherry said, the bottle will be empty before
it. Yes, yeah. Let him, do you want the bubbly in it?
I think yes.
It's actually really good.
Yeah.
Probably, it's a good idea. Never thought of it. So you guys, how many, you know, on the top of your head, how many kinds of meat you have here?
We have over a dozen
Wow.
right now in
Yeah.
our meat varieties. And the other thing that we've been doing that's like he says, you can get very creative with mead. And so we have fortified meads now. So Art has, well, I should probably, you may want to come run around 16%. And the first,
That's
yeah, the first one we tried,
The smaller bottles, right?
right, is cherry selection.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And anyway, you explain the process.
What happens when you do a fortified meat or fortified anything actually is you're going to add alcohol back in to bring the alcohol content up higher. So in this case here, we take a normal cherry mead and we start with that as the base. And we add more cherries and of course more sweetness in the honey. And then we're going to add, because after this, our alcohol content drops off from about 12.5 to about 8%. And then when you have a mead that's very sweet, then you can get the alcohol content up higher. So we have to add alcohol back in, and it's 96.5% grain alcohol. And then you get your balance. You can taste the alcohol, and you can also taste the sweetness of the mead.
So this is, you buy alcohol that you had on later.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
So question from me to you is what somebody might ask, well, why didn't you just let the alcohol go to like 16% when you're in your initial production?
Because you're going to lose at the beginning.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
You're going to ferment all. Yeah.
It's kind of like a blended scotch, right?
Exactly.
You add other, it's not a single malt, it's a blend.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And you make this one, and you have also others?
Yeah, we have
Choke cherry?
our second one was raspberry. Red of that right now. I'm gonna make some when I get time. Choke cherry. Now you wouldn't think choke cherry may not be that great. Believe me, the nose is amazing, wonderful stuff. Eating choke cherries is not great. But
No.
This is different. The next one we're going to do is a black currant, and black currants do a wonderful job with anything, and this is probably going to be one of the better ones, hopefully.
The test batches are pretty good.
Test batches are always good. It's always trying to get into bigger ferment.
Yeah, that's one of the drawbacks of working here is that you are forced to test everything. So, yeah, sampling.
Terrible thing, right?
It's a hardship.
Yeah, nobody refuses.
Of
They
course.
all have fun doing it, so it's all good.
Okay, so we talk meat. You said like you have like a dozen different flavors. You also do sell also all kinds of honey here. You have souvenirs, presents, kind of.
Yeah, quite a wide selection of things, gifts and everything. Everything's pretty much honey centric. We have some pottery that's got bees on it. We've got one line in right now that's got some very nice little bee motifs and all from local artists. So we like to promote that. Our honey itself, of course, we have that, and we have an Alberta mint, which we don't, our bees aren't working the mint, but it's from down the Bow Island area where they grow mint. So it's kind of neat because it's actually a varietal. And you get a very, very slight mint taste from it, but it's really interesting nectar source. And then we also bring in honey from around the world. So we've got buckwheat, which of course is very, very difficult to actually harvest here. And we've got some Tasmanian blue gum, things like that. Just because we find that people will actually prefer honey of the area they grew up in. So for people who didn't grow up in Alberta, these are kind of very sort of close to the heart honeys that they really enjoy. And there's a lot of people who love to explore different honey flavors. So yeah, it's kind of fun to try those. And so that we have honey jams, jelly sauces that we make right here in our commercial kitchen. The honey ice cream that we talked about in High River, and yeah, you name it. So
you name it. If it has honey in it, you have it pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Now, I don't know, did we talk about it? I just looked at the Viking horn there, about your
Hoard at the Hive. Yes.
and about your competition.
Oh, the competition that we got, which, yes, you were supposed to mention that.
Well,
Anyway.
I almost forgot that you talked about it, and I see it, so I
Okay,
remind you.
so we have a hobby mead competition, so we're really putting out the challenge to all of you beekeepers because we've yet to have anyone in the beekeeping world enter in this competition. And it's going to be in May of 2021. We haven't pinned down the exact date yet, but we figure this gives you enough lead time. If you've got some information from Art that will get you interested in starting to make mead or maybe help you perfect. And it's open to any hobby. I think entries are about $15, and you can enter, I believe it's at least 3 meads if you want. The entries will actually open a few months beforehand, but we figure this gives you a lot of lead time. And we really, really would like to see some of the beekeepers, because truly Art can't be the only beekeeper that's making mead, really. Because he started as a beekeeper, and yeah.
You made me do it.
I know that some of our colleagues in the club are making mead. I'm actually surprised nobody ever entered, because I had some.
And I'm sure there's a lot of you there that now you've got some added information. It'll be it would be great to get more beekeepers.
We probably should then maybe after this we'll send out an email with the information so everybody got it. Also, if they're not. They didn't see this, they didn't hear about it.
It'll be, but you're taping.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Too,
This video here is going to be not right away, but by tomorrow it will be published. YouTube does that automatically. It takes a moment, but it will eventually be visible. So yeah.
Great.
No, but anytime that you if you have a question, I'm only a phone call away. If I can help, by any means, I'll definitely try to help you to make mead and have fun with it. It's a lot of fun.
So, no questions at all?
This is a very quiet group tonight.
It's a very quiet group tonight.
That's okay.
An ultimate, maybe, I guess mead is it's something you really need to try, you need to play with. And like I said, I thought it's so easy because it worked the first 2 times, but ever since I'm battling with this whole thing. So, and a lot of people you talk to, they say, "Oh, it's easy, just throw it in." I don't think it's that easy.
No.
There is
One of the hardest alcohol to make.
If you want it consistent, it's
if you want it good, if you don't care, then hey, it's okay. But your friends might be slowly walking away.
We don't want to scare them. No. Well, good.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, for visiting, and hopefully we'll see you. And like Art said, he's very open for questions. So
I want to thank Art and Sherry for having us tonight. It's great to be here. It's great to have such a source close by, such a beautiful place with all this place. So I highly recommend, if you've never been here, come check it out. If you're here before, come again. Check it out. Try, come to the bar here. The glasses are a bit smaller, but still, it's beautiful.
The sample glasses, and believe me,
the law
we
is different.
do the whole COVID thing, so.
Yeah, that's the other thing, but they're still open, so.
Yes, we are open, so we'd love to see you.
Come down, and as I mentioned in the email before, we're working on at least one more, maybe two more of these live broadcasts, so stay
hopefully
tuned.
next time the rural internet won't.
Yeah, that was really unfortunate, but we were pretty much live, and 2 minutes before we were going live, the ExploreNet just kind of pulled the rug under our feet, and we started scrambling. Now we're hotspotting off an iPhone here. So, you have a question? No?
No, it was a thank you. So they were
Okay.
enjoying the information and the tour. So thank you very much.
Great. Thanks to our host. Thanks everybody for
hanging in with us. Yeah.
tuning in tonight. And thanks. Have a good night, and see you next time.
Take care.
Take care. Drive safe. Oh no.
And are you sure? And